Barcelona. Here. Fitzmaurice. Here. Crawford. Here. Smale. Here. Randolph. Here. Truxillo. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Announcements, please silence all phones and electronic devices. If you disagree with the decision this commission makes, you have the right to appeal it. The appeal cards are on the railing to my right. Speaker cards, if you wish to speak on any case, you need to fill out a speaker card, turn it into staff, and they will get it up here to us. Public speaking, 10 minutes each side and 5 minutes for rebuttal. After your case is heard, please exit the building. Please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Randolph and the pledge by Commissioner Willie.
Gracious Father, once again, we come to you as humble as we know how, but with thanksgiving and praise in our hearts as we recognize who you are and who you continue to be in each and every one of our lives. We thank you, Lord, for blessing us with your grace and mercy throughout this entire day to this moment in time. And we thank you for this opportunity once again to be at this meeting. Bless our commissioners and bless our audience and bless our employees and our governmental leaders, Heavenly Father, and the hard work that they do every day. Be with our families and continue to lead and guide us. It's in your holy name. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Commissioners, in your packet you had the minutes of the January 4th meeting. Hopefully you had a chance to review them. Commissioner Randolph.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Barcelona.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barcelona. Please vote.
Mr. Russ, thank you. The motion to approve the minutes carries.
Thank you. Staff, do we have any cases that need to be postponed? Okay. We'll try and get word back to.
Okay.
All right. We'll try and get Danny back up here and see if he can figure it out. All right. Tell him postponing.
Yes, we do have a request to postpone number 3 on the agenda. 2021-2635 ZC. And Mr. Mike Saucier is here to address any questions you may have.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. Mike Saucier, 109 New Camellia Boulevard, Suite 100, Covington, Louisiana. Members of the Commission, I'm here tonight representing the sellers of the property and also the potential buyers of the property. Simply put, the buyers are just not ready to make this commitment on this property at this particular time. So we are asking for a 1-month postponement. I think this month will give us a lot of clarity and allow us to move forward with the rezoning request.
Okay, and if you're not sure that 1 month will do it, we can postpone it for 2 months and.
Well, we're fighting deadlines on one end and this on the other end. So I'd say 1 month. We'll take it a month at a time and would appreciate your consideration.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. We have Ellen, was there any other cases?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me read this one. I really hate to have to read this one just per the list on the agenda. Okay. Case 2021-2635-ZC. Existing zoning is NC1 Professional Office District and NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District. Proposed zoning is HC3 Highway Commercial District, parcel located on the end of Highway 190 Service Road, north of Interstate 12, and south of Hellenberg Road, Covington, Ward 3, District 5. It's 6 acres, and the petitioner is Gulf States Construction Services Incorporated, Mike Soche, and the owner is as listed on the agenda. It has a number of people, and we're not going to go through reading it because it's all right here together. Commissioner Barcelona.
Make a motion to postpone for 1 month until the next meeting.
Motion by Commissioner Barcelona to postpone 2021-2635 ZC for 1 month. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner McInnes.
Yes, Mr. Soche, could you come back up? I'd like you to mention this to those who you represent. This is something I was going to bring up if we were to vote on it, but this project is in the Panchatalawa Watershed, and that is a relatively small watershed, and I've passed out a map to my fellow commissioners, and it's number 13 on your map, but it's got a lot of, or it's got several repetitive flooding homes in this watershed. Dove Park, some of the northern parts, subdivisions on the north end of Dove Park flood into a stream that floods in the Panchatalawa, and then there's an issue with the stream is impaired for oxygen, low dissolved oxygen. It's an impaired waterway. So all of this to say, I know that this project it's currently zoned so that it's going to be it can be paved over completely and have a lot of impervious surface. And what I would like to be considered, and this is something I brought up before, is to consider more green or impervious concrete. It's a significant size area that porous concrete lets the water come through the concrete and go into the ground, so that it's hugely beneficial to the watershed. EPA is doing a lot of research on it. They're using this now in New Orleans and a lot of cities that have flooding issues. So this would be an important watershed for us to sort of think about these more progressive ways to address some of the flooding problems we have in the parish. So I'm going to bring it up again when you come back. So
I'll be prepared.
I wanted to give you a heads up.
Thank you, thank you. Now,
To,
I will say, this particular piece of property is interesting. It's a hill.
It is, but if you put very densely dense concrete on it, that hill is going to totally not absorb anything.
Thank you. We will look into that. I have done that before in the past.
You have?
In other communities, yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone. Please vote.
The motion to postpone for 1 month carries. But when you
All right.
first press this,
First item,
that's not the vote. Even if they all click, that just means they voted.
okay, you got it. First item on the agenda is 2021-2218-ZC. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is I2 Industrial District. Location, parcel located on the west side of Compass Way South, south and east and west of Alamosa Park subdivision, being 27.291 acres. Mandeville, Ward 4, District 5. Petitioners Joan Fusel LLP, Jeffrey Shane. Owners Alamosa Holdings LLC and Abicura Holdings LLC. Margaret Anisi, Council District 5. Staff?
As you can see here on your zoning map, this case has been postponed multiple times, but this is actually a 36-acre parcel, and the owner petitioner is here requesting to rezone 27.29 acre of those 36 acres. And the objective of the request is to add industrial zoning to the existing Alamosa Industrial Park.
Thank you. Mr. Shane?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Honorable Commission. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fusel Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, and I represent the petitioner. We have postponed this case more times than I can remember, and because we have not been able to come to accord with various parties that we've been working with in connection with this project, we respectfully withdraw the petition this evening. And in making the request that it be withdrawn, I would like to thank the representatives of Thelma Estates, particularly Jason Van Halen and Marty Gould, who have worked with us throughout the process, and also Councilman Taladana, who sort of oversaw a lot of these discussions and negotiations. But it's become apparent that we're not able to come to consensus as we had hoped, and for that reason, we ask that this commission accept our withdrawal.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone here in the audience on this case? It's 2021-2218-ZC. Okay, so we understand that.
The case is withdrawn.
Case is withdrawn, so we don't need to vote or anything, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Item 2 is 2021-2634-ZC. Existing zoning is A3 Suburban District, A4 Single Family Residential District, and NC1 Professional Office District. Proposed zoning is A4A Single Family Residential District. Location, parcel located on the north side of Hellenberg Road, east of Highway 190, Service Road, Covington, Ward 3, District 5. It's 10 acres. Petitioner Jeffrey Shane. Owner is succession of Warren Joseph Sallies, Jr., Joseph Sallies, Council District 5. Staff?
The property in question here is currently undeveloped and abuts residential uses to the north, east, and south, and undeveloped commercial zoning property to the west. The purpose of the A4 single-family residential district, or more A4A, is to provide single-family residential dwellings in a setting of moderate urban density. So a zoning change will increase the allowable density of the property in the area and accommodate residential uses, but decrease the allowable intensity where the property is currently zoned to accommodate commercial uses.
Thank you. Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, Jeff Shane of the Jones Fusel Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, representing the petitioner in connection with this request. All of you remember that this matter was brought before you last month. We had considerable discussion, and the case was postponed so that additional information could be obtained from staff. Before we get into those issues, I'd like to again reiterate the essence of the request, go over some of the same information I gave you before, but also bring to the table tonight some new information that we have developed that I think will be of interest to you as it relates to the request. If you would, I'd like you to go to the third page of your staff report so that you can understand the existing zoning of the property. And I say that because in particular, there are 3 zones for this tract, and a little over 50% of the southerly portion is actually zoned as NC1. And the significance of that is that not only is it commercial, but commercial would typically be developed with a great percentage of impervious surfaces, not just the building, but the parking areas and drives as well. And also the NC1 allows 60-foot lot widths. So the significance of that is that if you transition into the request that we bring to you this evening for A4A, We have given you, and I think it's the fourth page or fifth page, last page of your staff report, we've given you a conceptual plan of what we hope to do. We seek A4A single-family residential zoning to build what we believe will be a very effective 35-lot subdivision at this location. That will provide a density of 3.5 units per acre. That is less than the 4 units per acre that A4 would allow, and certainly well less than the 6 units per acre that A4A would allow. In putting our project together and reviewing other information from the last meeting, we did some research as it relates to the lot widths on Kings Forest to the north, and also the lots abutting us on the south side along Slemmers Road. So in looking at the assessor's map and calibrating the widths of those lots to the best that we could, we believe that the lots on average are around 70 feet in width for Kings Forest on the north side, and about 50 feet in width on the south side along Slimmer Road. So interestingly, we have picked a 60-foot lot width, which we believe is very compatible. It's right in the middle, if you will. And of course, our request will eliminate the existing commercial zoning that's in place. A couple other highlights, most of which I mentioned at our meeting last month, but this property is currently in flood zone C. It is also projected to be flood zone X in the new map, which means it's a non-flood zone. Also, this property, we have a wetlands determination that is suggestive that the great majority of it, I would say about 85%, is non-wet. We also intend to have central sewer and water for the subdivision. That will be provided by Utilities Inc., and we've already made arrangements with them to make sure that they'll have the capacity to be able to service this development. As you can see on the conceptual plan that we've given you, we have positioned a detention pond in the southeast corner of the property. We know that the flows from this site will be to the southeast, and we also did some further investigation in that regard as it relates to what might the impacts of the waters be, largely in response to the question that Commissioner McInnes brought to the floor and was also really the basis for her postponement request last month. So what we've learned in that regard are a couple of things. Number one, if the property is developed under its current zoning, the impervious area calculation is 5.98 acres, which means 5.98 of the 10 acres would likely have impervious surface. If in fact the zoning is changed and the property is developed pursuant to the conceptual plan that we've provided to you, that impervious area shrinks to 4.09 acres. So you're talking about a very significant reduction. It's 50% greater in terms of impervious surface. Now, what does that translate to? It's going to translate into volume of water and the amount of storage that you're going to need. So we believe that it was a good suggestion from Commissioner McInnes that we learn more about perhaps what the waters might do in the watershed. Another note in that regard is that we had originally met with staff back in September of 2021 before we filed this project, and it determined and confirmed that none of this property was in a critical drainage area. Again, it was in non-flood zone. But we also wanted to make sure that there was no belief that the impacts of our water going downstream through the watershed would present problems to others. So in that regard, my client met last Wednesday with staff because we assumed that staff had prepared information from Ms. McInnes in response to her question, and we wanted to make sure that our information jived with theirs. So what we learned is that in this repetitive loss zone 13, although there are 39 structures that have experienced flooding in the past, none of those structures are to the north or south side of this development, and and in fact, are nowhere in the immediate vicinity of this development. So we're mindful of the fact that when we come back to you during the planning stages, that you will not only want to see a hydrology and drainage that assures you a 25% rate reduction of our runoff, but you're going to want to know where this water's going and how it might impact other properties. As you know, we don't have detailed drainage at this juncture, but now we have taken those preliminary steps that are encouraging to suggest that this tract, particularly if we reduce the amount of impervious area in the 10 acres from roughly 6 acres to 4 acres, there's no reason to think that we can't easily accommodate the water on site and perhaps more importantly, not create any problems as that water leaves the site and goes downstream. I think last but not least, I believe that the last sentence in the staff comments perhaps really paints the picture clearly, and that is that the requested change in zoning will increase the allowable density where the property is currently zoned to accommodate residential uses. So we're going to have only single-family residential. We're bordered on the north by single-family residential, and on the south we have some single-family residential and some multifamily along Slimmer Road. But this change of zoning will also decrease the allowable intensity where the property is currently zoned to accommodate commercial uses. So we're going to take some commercial property out of commerce, convert it to residential, and hopefully develop something that's very compatible to our neighbors to the north and neighbors to the south. You might also note on our conceptual plan that you've seen we've made an allowance for a recreation area, a green space area for the people that live in that subdivision so that they can have an area to go and recreate. And we think that's an asset as well. So with those remarks, I would respectfully request that you consider recommending the change of zoning to A4A and accommodate the conceptual plan that we've delivered to you. At the appropriate time, I'll be glad to answer any questions that any of you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor on this development? Seeing no one, we'll go to the other side. I have a card here from a Randall Turner. It just says against, but didn't say if you wanted to speak. So I assume since you're coming up, you wanted to speak.
I do, thank you, sir. Randall Turner, I live at 224 Robin Hood Drive. That's in Kings Forest subdivision. Several items of concern definitely are against. At the previous meeting, we didn't know whether we were for or against because we only found out about the issue coming up to the zoning meeting the night before. So we knew virtually nothing about it. Since then, we've been able to study the issue and do some comparisons and such. So we're against for several different reasons. Presently, Kings Forest is A4 zoning, which by the parish rules allows 4 lots per acre. They're asking for the A4A, which is 6 lots per acre, and 60-foot wide lots. Mr. Shane said that our lots are 70 feet wide. They're not. They're 75 feet wide. The lots, the majority of the lots in the subdivision are 75 by 155. His proposal is 60 feet wide by 120 feet wide. So as far as square footage, our lots presently, and there's some lots larger. My personal lot is 116 feet wide in Kings Forest. So a minimum of 75 feet wide in the subdivision. If you take that smallest lot in the subdivision of 75 by 155, the square footage of that lot is 11,625 square feet. His 60 by 120 foot wide lots are 7,200 square feet. It's 38% smaller. The lots are 38% smaller on this proposal than what we have immediately adjacent to the development on the north side. It's just not acceptable for us to be that much difference from one property to the next. Now, those on the NC1 lots, the present zoning of his parcel is NC1 down closer to Slimmer Road. Those are 60-foot wide lots. So a 60-foot wide lot adjacent to a 60-foot wide lot don't have a problem on the south side of his development. There's, as I read your rules, a residential development could be put on this parcel with no rezoning. The present zoning is, it's a combination of the A3 and the A4. His A3 part, which is adjacent to Kings Forest, only allows, as I understand it, 2 units per acre on an A3 zoning. So that's less dense than what we have in Kings Forest. That sounds great to us, right? And the NC1 on the other side, of the part closer to Slimmer, is the NC1, and NC1 does allow residential building. As I read your rules, it allows a personal single-family residence to be put on an NC1 zoning. So that part of his parcel, he wouldn't have to change the zoning at all to put the same size lots on the south side of his development. Okay, it's zoned NC1, he could put commercial there, but he wants a residential development. A residential development can be put with the lot size that he wants. However, that's closest to Kings Forest is zoned A3. That was, as you know, came from the comprehensive zoning plan from however many years ago. The comprehensive zoning, we think, still is appropriate. And for those many reasons, we are against this development, with the additional consideration, talking a lot of talk about water and the flood zone and such. Our land generally flows north to south, so our water goes toward his parcel. We sure don't want a development that's going to block that flow and then the water back up on us. So not only are we concerned about what goes into the creek, but what also would be retained on our property on that. And as all of you know, President Mike Cooper is proposing a moratorium on any change of zoning to increase the density greater on a rezoning to greater than 1 lot per acre. Realize that has not been heard yet, but you know that's coming up, and I think the parish president is right that right now we need to hold off on any zoning changes that would increase the density residential zoning.
Okay, thank you. I have another card on Antoinette Taylor.
Good evening.
Ah.
I'm Antoinette Taylor. I'm on 20067 Hellenberg Road, and I'm against it. I'm aware that it's zoned for residential and commercial. I think it should be zoned for residential, but to put, I'm not into all this, trying to get there. The number of houses that they want to put on per acre, I feel it needs to be less. I'm concerned about looking at the print that they're gonna put a pond on that property, I guess so the water could flow. It's a lot of kids up in that area. Who's gonna protect those kids from getting up in that pond? And then the recreation part of it runs right behind my house, which make me wonder, forest lighting, we're in a quiet area. Is that going to change on top of the amount of cars that they're trying to increase with the houses? Against it.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak against on this that hasn't turned in a card? All right, we'll go to rebuttal. Mr. Shane.
In response, with all due respect, we believe that the conceptual plan that we've presented is really very modest and compatible and fits with what is there. I would not suggest that the gentleman's incorrect with regard to the width of his lot or perhaps the width of the other lots. Maybe our review of the assessor's map wasn't as accurate as it could have been. We believe what I tell you, I just reaffirmed, is what we believe it to be. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, the A3 seems to be somewhat out of place. If you look at the map, it's the only finger of A3 we see there. And I would suggest to you that this development, unlike the developments to the north or south, does have a detention pond. And in fact, we've got 11% of our site that's committed to open space. I conferred with my engineer before the meeting to make sure that it was understood that any waters that flow from the north, from Kings Forest, we must accommodate those waters, and we intend we'll run them into our detention pond and detain them as well. So the water is not going to flow to the north. It is a valid concern as to what will happen to the water coming from the north, but our drainage plan will show you at the Planning Commission level where the waters are coming from, where the waters are going. Are we detaining them for sufficient periods of time to reduce the rate of runoff? And will it be a reasonable development plan from an infrastructure perspective? Now, with regard to the pond and or the recreation area creating some safety concern for children, et cetera, I guess kids and people will do whatever they tend to do. I can only tell you that this will be a subdivision that's well-defined. It doesn't mean, I guess, that people are trespassing if they come onto the property, but quite frankly, it's not going to be set up where it's open for neighbors to just come into the property, plain and simple. So I don't know that there's a security issue there. And quite frankly, I would suggest that if you take a look, particularly at the properties along Slimmer Road, there might be greater concerns about security on the south side of this subdivision than there would be as it relates to anything that would be developed on this track. I think that it's a very strong argument to suggest that the elimination of commercial and the elimination of increased likelihood of impervious area is a positive, because I believe it now presents a consistent profile from north to south of residential zoned property. Again, the 35 units that we have on our concept plan and what you will see at the tentative subdivision hearing, if this zoning is approved, at 3.5 units per acre, we're clearly less than the A4 density. And so I think it fits very much in step with Kings Forest. They're zoned A4, and so our density is actually going to be a little less than that. We've tried hard to be modest with our request. There's some that might come with this 10 acres and believe that they should be entitled to pack in a lot more. We didn't think that was the way to go about it. We picked a product and a quantity and a density that we thought we could stand up with a straight face and say this is a reasonable request in light of what we have to the north and south. I would also add that improving drainage, not only for our development, but also capturing water from the north and holding that water could produce a real benefit to the area. And I think that the way that drainage is analyzed now, not only by staff, but by you, I have every confidence that if and when we get to the preliminary subdivision approval review, that you're going to take a good hard look at everything coming into this property from the north, and more importantly, where all that water's going when it leaves us going to the south. But we're up to that challenge, and we think we can successfully meet it. So please remember that tonight is a land use issue. It's a request for a change of zoning. It's to give us an opportunity to prepare and provide the more detailed plans as it relates to a lot of the issues that we've discussed this evening. And we hope that you'll give us that opportunity, because we look forward to presenting that information to you in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Randall Turner, do you have a rebuttal?
Randall Turner, 224 Robin Hood. You don't have me convinced. And I do have one question of the commission. If this property were rezoned as requested, and then this development did not go through as their plan, 6 months from now, whatever, they decided that, no, we're not going to do this development, But wow, now we've got this zoning where it's, we can now put 6 lots per acre on it. Is that a valid concern to us, that these, just because this is their plan right now, might not be the plan for a future owner if this development does not go through? Can you answer that question?
I'll let you answer that.
If the zoning changes to A4A, whatever uses are permitted under A4A would be allowed by a future owner, but subject to any setbacks and other ordinance provisions.
Okay, so it wouldn't have to be this plan only, anything allowed under the A3 zoning could be put on, which is absolutely, totally unacceptable to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Taylor, you have a rebuttal? No, okay, all right. I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner McInnes.
Yes, I want to thank the commissioners for allowing the gathering of a little more information on this watershed that this project is in. I really feel that having this sort of information is really important for us to do a good job. When we have, when we know that there is a stressed watershed from the flooding or other perspective, and we're voting on increasing or changing density, then we should know that before, it's just another piece of information that we can have in hand. And the staff was responsive and provided this map that I handed to you. And if for Area 13, the Panchatalawa Watershed, as Jeff mentioned, there is, and this is not up-to-date information. It's 2018 or 19. It's the latest available, but it's not current. But it does show there's some issues, and it's a relatively small watershed. It's only a little over 3,000 acres. So you wouldn't think, well, 10-acre project, it's not going to hurt. But every time we put a nick in these watersheds, there's a cumulative impact. So I wanted to have this information before we voted, and so now we have it. And I guess I'm just going to go ahead and say what I'm thinking is that I do agree that having the the NC whatever NC4 zoning does have more impervious surface, and that it would benefit from being residential rather than for that land use. But what I'm not certain is that it should go to A4A when most of it on the north is A3, and there's a lot of A3 or A4 surrounding the area. So I think that A4 is more appropriate zoning for this project rather than the A4A that's being proposed. And I guess I would like to ask if the petitioners would consider that.
Well, I respect your position, but we do not seek A4. But I would like to add, since you've asked the question, if all of you would take a look at the conceptual map that we've provided you, the concern that the gentleman suggested that if this property is zoned A4A, it opens Pandora's box to many more lots. Take a look at that conceptual plan and tell me how you could get any more 60-foot lots on this parcel than's currently there. You're still going to have to provide detention, and staff can correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think for each lot you have to provide about 550 square feet of recreation area. So my point is that it's an impossibility to have any more than the 35 lots that are there. And to go back to your question, in order to justify the economics of running central sewer and water and putting the detention in and putting the road in, there are economics that suggest you need more units. And we think 35 is a modest number. To lose roughly, I guess, a third of those lots by going to a 90-foot front would not make this project viable. And it would likely result perhaps in having some of the commercial development and other development that I don't think is good for the region. So I appreciate your concern, but respectfully, we think a good case has been made for A4A.
Well, I'm going to let my other commissioners comment at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Ress.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. The A4 up there on Robin Hood, at some point we changed the zoning classifications. I know this, I think it happened in Westwood subdivision, that what was bigger lots, when we redid the comprehensive zoning, it says A4, but that didn't used to be the same kind of A4, or it was an A3, or something changed during the comprehensive rezoning, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, it might not have been A4 at the time. I would have to double check on the map.
So the A4 that's there today isn't necessarily the A4 it was developed under?
Well, A4 in the past had a lot size of 90 by 140.
Okay, so they were bigger lots, and which made kind of, so, and down below there, the stuff on Slemmer, that shows that as NC1, but yet it's kind of developed as residential, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, I guess, I heard some good things that the considerations they were taking in place here about drainage issues. I don't think we talked much about the problems we have in that area is the exit points off of Hellenberg up on 190 at that intersection. Now everybody coming out of there's got to go to the north before they can go south. And also the other end of it is basically going to be Dog Pound Road probably, which isn't a great road at this point for more traffic either. So I'm concerned a little bit about those issues also. I also find it kind of hard to believe that NC1 would even get developed in there as commercial property because nobody would know it's there. It's kind of a blind area. The odds of it being developed NC1 as a business, it'd be like a blind business in there. Most businesses like to have some more visibility than that. I mean, I'm saying they won't, but I would say the odds are down. I kind of agree that either the existing zoning that's in place or the fact of an A4 overall makes more sense than trying to jam more houses in here. And I guess I always struggle with the argument of infrastructure cost can't be supported by bigger lots. Well, bigger lots sell for more money. So in the end, I'm not always convinced that there isn't the same amount of money in the end. You just have to, that's what it's got to be. And St. Tammany is not having trouble selling lots these days. So in my mind, I kind of agree with the argument of, an A4 would be more ideal in my mind. I think it matches up better. And I'll wait to hear what the rest of the commissioners say also. Thank you.
Commissioner Truxillo.
Well, had good arguments on both sides, for and against, and looking at this map, I see there's A4, NC1, so A3 is kind of an anomaly there, it shouldn't be there. We could talk about this for another hour and a half, and still debate it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a motion to approve, so we can have a vote.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Truxillo to approve the A4A. Commissioner Barcelona.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barcelona. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, we go to, item 4, 2021-2644-ZC. Existing zoning is A4, proposed zoning is A5, two-family residential, district. Location parcel located on the east side of Highway 437, south of Tammany Avenue, Covington, Ward 3, District 2. It's .33 acres. Petitioner's Ray Poche, and the owner's Ray Poche, Council District 2. Staff?
The property is currently surrounded by residential zoning and undeveloped land and also residential dwellings, and there's also commercial use across the street. The purpose of the current zoning A4 is to allow for single-family residences on quarter-acre lots, and the purpose of the A5 is to allow for single-family residences or two-family dwelling at a maximum density of 8 dwellings per acre. Zoning change, an approval of the zoning change would allow for a higher density than it is currently permitted in the area.
Thank you. Mr. Poche, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Ray Poche, 214 Highland Crest Drive in Covington. We're looking to take this piece of property, instead of a single dwelling, to do a duplex, which it's close to, I believe, 10,000 square feet for that property, but our property we're looking to rezone is like 14,300. Across the street, like she said, is a commercial property. Down the street's a commercial. This piece of property would face the Highway 437. That's where access would be at.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? Okay, we've got, I've got some cards here. I will call them off. You are?
Salvatore.
Okay.
Live at 20061 Tammany Avenue, in the Tammany Terrace subdivision. Over the last 16 years, I've watched our little neighborhood grow with beautiful homes and lots of new families. We all work hard and take great pride in our property. Our neighborhood and close surroundings have always been zoned for single-family dwellings and should be allowed to remain so. Nothing good would come of a development of this sort in proximity to our neighborhood. It would only negatively affect the value of what we work for if this, and most likely others, were to be built in the future if the zoning was to change. The proposed duplex units are to be built almost in someone's backyard, eliminating the green space and increasing the dwelling density in that area that is surrounded by single-family homes. To place multifamily units on that property at the entrance to our neighborhood will not fit in with the scheme of the existing subdivision. In fact, nothing about a change in zoning or these structures will be compatible with or complementary to the existing residential dwellings, including the fact that all existing homes are on quarter-acre lots. Changing the zoning to allow for a higher density of dwellings next to an established subdivision will adversely affect our property values and the areas that we call home. I'm asking you to please reject that zoning change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kay Irwin. Kay Irwin. Said you were against, but you didn't mark if you wanted to speak or not.
In addition to what Mr. Tari just spoke about, I'm also concerned about its proximity to Lee Road. I understand that its entrance is there, and there are a few houses that are similar to that, and their driveways, when they park in their driveways, obstruct the view from the intersecting streets. So we would have double the density of vehicles going in and out, and I don't know what the offsets would be, but what we're seeing people do is park in that median between the drainage ditch and their fence, or on their driveway, and you can't see. I originally had some concerns about the infrastructure support by doubling it, and as he said, it being possibly a precedent for the subsequent development of the subdivision south of Tammany Avenue. I did see on your speaker card that that won't be addressed at that meeting, so I won't go into detail. But I'm not sure about the environmental implications, because that land that we're talking about, just my walking it, what's in my backyard, it's clearly wetlands. I've seen both pitcher plants, nepenthes, and sundews, the droseras, and increasing the runoff on those could possibly jeopardize. I think I need to see if I can access, if there was a wetlands delineation done for the original subdivision, and if there's any mitigation in place. So in addition to his concerns, I would like those two things addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak against? Come forward, state your name and address, and fill out a speaker card when you finish.
Yes, sir. Hi, my name's Liam Babcock. I'm at 20078 Walden Street, and I'm just here to support the motion to, go against what they're proposing. Although it was stated that the lot is near commercial property, it's actually within the Tammany Terrace subdivision, I believe, and they are actually about to develop the other side. If you look at a survey of the actual neighborhood, Tammany is in the center of the development, and they are going to start to develop the other side, going further south. And I just think that it could be a potential issue, allowing other lots to be zoned according to how this one ends up. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fill out a card, please. All right, we'll go to rebuttal. Ray Poche, you have any rebuttal?
Yes, I'd just like to make clear, it's only a one double on a property. It's a 3-bed, 2-bathroom homes, ranch style, approximately 1,400 square feet on each side of it.
Okay, thank you. Any of those that spoke against, do you have any rebuttal? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner McInnes.
I'm sorry, I didn't intend for that. I think it was left over from last time.
Okay, Commissioner Willie.
Well, when I'm looking at the overall map, I'm looking at mostly A1 and some A4 and a little NC4 and no other duplexes in the area. Most of the area is mostly single-family homes. And I really think this would change the whole nature of the neighborhood, so I'm going to move for denial.
Motion by Commissioner Willie to deny. Commissioner Seaver.
I'm going to second that motion, please.
Second by Commissioner Seaver. Any further comment? Please vote.
The motion, the motion to deny carries.
Thank you. All right. Next item is 2021-2652-ZC. Existing zoning is A1 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is PF1 Public Facilities District. Location, parcel located on the northeast side of Isaac Road, southwest of Prosper Drive, Lacombe, Ward 7, District 7. It's .971 acres. Petitioner is Forrest Kennedy. Owner is Forrest and Tamara Kennedy, Council District 7. Staff?
The property is currently developed with a cemetery, and the objective of the request is to bring the site into compliance with the appropriate zoning district.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Mr. Chair, Forrest Kennedy, 28148 Isaac Road, Lacombe. My wife, we've been living in the area for 5 years and had our eye on the property, and then the stepdaughter and son-in-law are being moved over from Panchatalawa and want to build a home, so we thought it'd be a great residential area. But I have two objectives. We'd like to zone out the cemetery to the Dupree families had this cemetery since the early 1900s, and I hope to donate that to them where they could have that, and then I'd have the other 5.8 acres for a residential area. That's our plan with the property.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Crawford.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Crawford to approve. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2021-2660-ZC. Existing zoning is A3 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A5 Two-Family Residential District. Location partial located on the north side of Richardson Drive, east of Tranquility Drive, Lacombe, Ward 9, District 11. It's 2 acres. Petitioner is Brent Matsky, and the owner is Brent Matsky, Council District 11. Staff?
The site is currently undeveloped and surrounded by undeveloped properties and also single-family residences. The purpose of the existing zoning A3 is to allow for single-family residences on half-acre lots. The purpose of the request is to go to A5 two-family residential, which would allow single-family residences or two-family dwellings, and potentially increase in density up to 8 dwelling units per acre. So the zoning change would definitely increase the intensity and density of the units in the area.
Thank you. Brent Matsky? Good evening.
Yep, 66514 Highway 434. I just want to split the property into two single-acre lots and put a duplex on each, was the plan.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? All right, we'll go to against. I have a card on Mark Bryan. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm Mark Bryan, 31245 Cypress Street. Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of North Tranquility who are against this proposed upzoning request from A3 Suburban to A5 Two-Family Residential District. This would potentially allow up to 16 dwelling units to be constructed in an exclusively single-family residential neighborhood, significantly altering the character of the area, increasing density, runoff, traffic, and establishing a disturbingly unwelcome zoning precedent for this community. Lack of basic drainage and access infrastructure investment in unincorporated areas which lags development has recently led to an extraordinary moratorium proposal by Mr. Cooper, the parish president. This moratorium is pending a hearing by the parish council and would apply to new residential development and zoning density requests beyond A2 or 1 unit per acre. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. Granted, this is only 2 acres. This request only increases the density of this property by 4 times what is currently allowed. Yes, this is only potentially 16 units, according to the zoning requested. There are many, many small 2 to 6 acre parcels in the area, which could be subject to the slippery slope argument of only once a precedent is in place. I would respectfully request that the Zoning Commission vote to preserve the character of our neighborhood, acknowledge the intent of an extraordinary moratorium proposal, and vote to deny this rezoning request. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Donna McDonald?
I'll pass.
Okay, Lee Domain?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Lee Domingue. I live at 34057 Bayou Liberty Road, and as serving as president of the Bayou Liberty Association, myself and the 250 members I represent are opposed to the rezoning of this property. And I agree with everything that's been said before me, and I think that we as the citizens of St. Tammany are very concerned about what I think is almost tantamount to spot zoning in an area that's predominantly A3. I do think that we need to be cognizant that there are people who live in this area who have A3 zoning, and they have houses associated with that zoning, which is 2 units per acre. To assume that we can take 1 2-acre plot, make it A5 with a duplex instead of single-family housing, and quadruple the number of units on that 2-acre property, I think is just bizarre. I think it's dangerous. I think the precedent is something we do not want to ever consider. Thank you for your time and your effort.
Thank you. Carol Fowler? Good evening.
Hello, I'm Carol Fowler. I live on 31104 Cypress Street, which is, in Lacombe, which is about a half a mile from the property that's being requested to be rezoned. I'm not going to take up too much time. I just want to say what he said and what he said. And I am totally against the rezoning. Any high density is just out of the question. Our parish is, it seems to be everybody's coming out now that this moratorium has been suggested. So again, thank you very much, and please deny this request.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak against? Yes, I do. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address and fill out a speaker card.
Speaker card has been turned in. My name is Don Reamer.
Okay.
I'm at 31185 Richardson Drive.
Okay.
And as the gentleman here just mentioned, I am one of those residents. So I appreciate his comments in that regard, and I'm also here to oppose the zoning change. I have circulated a letter to many of you, at least the ones that had email addresses. I'm sorry I didn't get them to everybody, and I gave some paper copies here tonight with that. I'm not going to read from that letter to you at this time because I think it's a little bit insulting to you. I think you understand the concern that residents have for this change in zoning, especially if it's going to go to 16 times the density. But I can just go through some points here, and I also have 9 signed petitions from people in this area. And if it's okay now, I'd like to turn those in at this time. Thank you. Some of the things that the residents are opposed, and their opposition is unanimous. There is nobody that is for this. We feel that the local infrastructure is already overburdened. There are already too many accidents at the intersection of Tranquility and Highway 190. Increased risk of major flooding to adjacent properties such as mine, as the gentleman pointed out, and I appreciate that, as well as Tranquility Drive, which, by the way, floods every time we get an inch or two of rain, every single time. This will cause damage to a wetland. This wetland is proximal to the same wetland that you guys reviewed for the honeybee development. It's going to cause potentially a severe drawdown of the groundwater, increasing the cone of depression for the aquifer. It's going to be a lot more intensity for people using water in all these residences. There'll be increased noise levels in the area, increased traffic on Richardson Drive and Tranquility, and ultimately the 190, which, as you know, is already overburdened. It'll exacerbate the existing flooding problem in this area. It will negatively affect the quality of life for the people that live on the street. It will negatively affect property values. There are safety concerns of residents that live in this area for themselves with the increase in traffic, as well as their children, a number of which are very small and don't always pay attention to cars that may be passing by. There's also an additional burden on the sheriff's department because Lacombe does not have its dedicated police force. So any issues that derive out of that, St. Tammany Sheriff's deputies have to be called. Certainly an increase in this type of density and with renters, there's going to be disputes. There's going to be calls. And finally, to echo some of the sentiments that have already been articulated here quite well, a zoning change that increases population density, all the residents on my street feel this way, should not be allowed in St. Tammany Parish. And we honor the President's desire to entertain that moratorium, and I respectfully ask you guys to please oppose this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Okay, come up. If you haven't completed I have a card here on Mark Curacar. That's you?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
How is everybody tonight?
fine.
All right, thank
Like you have about a minute.
you. Okay, that's fine. As my neighbor there, Mr. Remus, has said, it's pretty well covered, and I just wanted to add that this property is exactly across from my property that I've lived at for 30 years. I raised 3 children there, and I now have 6 grandchildren that come over and ride their bikes and skates and all that other stuff that they do, play ball, and I hate seeing things change for the worst. We got horrible flooding. I mean, it's never flooded down to Richardson Drive, and it does now. Like I said, those wrecks there, they're fatal wrecks of fatalities. But please look at this twice and thrice, and please vote no on this. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right. I received an email from a lady opposing this. It's, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, Quinetta Magara.
That's correct, sir.
Pardon?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And she basically opposed it. I'm not going to read it, but I just wanted to get her name in the record as opposing it. All right, we'll go to rebuttal now. Mr. Matsky? You've heard what these folks against you have said, so.
Yeah,
your
I
opportunity.
understand the concern. I don't think anybody would want to put 16 doors on this place. You know, I think from my understanding, I could possibly put 3 single-family residents on it if I wanted to, which I don't. But I thought, you know, just splitting in the middle, putting a duplex on each side, you know, may be okay. But I do understand their concerns with the zoning would allow it to be up to 16, you know, houses, which I don't think anybody would want to do that or could afford to do that there anyway, so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those of you that oppose, do you have any rebuttal?
Yes.
As the gentleman pointed out earlier, a change in zoning doesn't just affect one particular lot. And we have no personal grievance with the owner of that lot, but he made that purchase under a certain zoning condition, and now he comes to the Planning Commission and wants to get a zoning change. There's a bigger lot at the end of Richardson Drive, and I think that's where Mr. Mark is coming up with the density of 16 times. So once this change is made, if that owner sells his property, much like an earlier argument that you heard this evening, it really opens the door, and you guys know this better than I do, to that kind of development. So it's not just limited to a single property, and I would sincerely hope that you consider the major increase in density that Mr. Bryant pointed out, and there is a big lot at the end of the street. You could definitely do that because it's big enough to make that happen if the zoning gets changed. So please vote against this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've had rebuttal on both sides. I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Smale.
So this proposed change from an A3 to an A5 is right in the middle of a neighborhood that has A3 surrounding it. You know, when a homeowner buys a house in an A3, 2 units per acre, they should be able to depend on us to keep it that way. There's multiple emails that I've received through the Department of Planning that have been against this rezoning. We've heard from multiple residents that are against this rezoning, and also the Councilman Drummond over this area is against this rezoning. So I propose us to deny this request.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smale to deny. Commissioner Crawford.
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Russ, how do you vote? The vote to, the motion to deny carries.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2021-2662-ZC. Existing zoning is A3 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is PF1 Public Facilities District. Parcel located on the east side of Highway 1090, north of Crow's Landing Road, Pearl River, Ward 8, District 9. That's 5.03 acres. The petitioner is Keller Williams, Jeff Lindsay, and the owner is the Presbytery of South Louisiana, Barry Chance. This is in Council District 9. Staff?
The subject property is developed with an existing church that's located on a parcel which is currently zoned A3 Suburban District. The property abuts undeveloped residentially zoned property to the east, an existing residentially zoned neighborhood to the south, and undeveloped property zoned to accommodate neighborhood commercial uses to the north. A change in zoning will allow for the existing religious institution to come into compliance with the correct zoning classification.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Lindsay? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Jeff Lindsay, 200 Robin Court in Slidell. I want to just briefly give a little bit of background. I don't want to take a lot of time, just for the benefit of those who have not read these materials. So, the current owners of the property are the Presbytery of South Louisiana. They are the larger ecclesiastical body that had oversight of the Northminster Presbyterian Church, as well as other churches during its 3-decade tenure within their denomination. On September 12, 2020, the congregation, after a long period of decline, decided they could not sustain their existence as a church and voted to close it by December of 2020. They had their last service of worship in November of 2020. Anticipating the coming closure, they contracted with our brokerage to arrange for the sale of the property. After a number of months, a local church out of Pearl River, the Crossing Baptist Fellowship, located on Highway 41 in Pearl River, partly due to extensive damage to their building in Hurricane Ida and partly due to a need to find a larger and more suitable place, they made an offer on the property. We received that offer accepted as with a contingency, and of course the contingency is related to the zoning. In the course of their due diligence, it was discovered that the original zoning on the property was A3 suburban with an approved legal non-conforming use, which had been in place for about 3 decades. Now that the former church has disbanded, and even though the property is still owned by the same denomination, they were informed that the previous variance, according to your regulations, which make perfect sense, but it had been discontinued, and so it's reverted now to A3 suburban with no approved non-conforming use. So the problem to be addressed then is that we now have a church structure and a church body, the Presbytery of South Louisiana, that cannot legally function as a church and also cannot transfer this property to another church for similar use, because without a zoning change or variance, we don't have any authority to do so. So the current owners are making application to the parish to change the zoning from A3 suburban to PF1 or whatever zoning this body thinks is the best to accomplish this purpose, so that the Crossing Baptist Fellowship or some other such church entity, should this contract not be fully executed, be able to use the property for the same purpose. If we don't make this change, then it's going to put the current owners in a difficult spot, because they will be stuck with a property and land that they will find difficult to sell, if at all. So we're asking the zoning officials to help us out here, help them move on, and also help this new church move ahead.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address and complete a speaker card when you finish.
I believe you have a speaker card already. My name is Barry Chance. I'm the stated clerk of the Presbytery of South Louisiana. I reside at 103 North Pine Street in Hammond. Presbytery of South Louisiana is the owner of this property after our congregation, Northminster Presbyterian Church, dissolved in December. As Mr. Lindsay stated, in the process of attempting to find a new owner for this property, we discovered that we had been operating for 30 years as a congregation with this legal variance, which obviously presents something of a challenge for selling it. It is our great hope that we will, though our congregation has ceased to do ministry in this community, that we can help facilitate this congregation that's seeking to purchase the property to continue to serve the community, and that will also enable us, through the sale of that property and the wishes of the members of the former congregation, to reinvest the funds from the sale into community ministries that they have identified.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address. If you haven't completed a speaker card, please do so.
My name is Sam Husser. I'm the pastor of the Crossing, and we came here after Katrina to plant a church. My wife and I did, and ended up in Slidell, Louisiana, and ended up in Pearl River, Louisiana, because there's a much needed uses of churches over there. And we found out our church was destroyed during Ida, and tornado got it, and then we got 12 inches of rain inside, so we're starting over again. And we've moved so many times that I wrote a little thing on my article the other day. I said, if you can find us, you deserve us. Okay, so anyway, but we're wanting to land on this permanent place and build a great church there, and hope and pray that you guys will pass this. And I've got one additional thing to say. After tonight, I am going to add all you guys on our prayer list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you complete a, did he complete a card? You need to complete a card. They're right there on the railing. All right, anyone else wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Commissioner Seeger.
I second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Seeger. Commissioner Smale.
Can Helen read the definition of a PF1 to me, since I'm kind of new?
Sure, let me just pull it
Public
up, sir.
Facilities District.
Just a moment.
All these other proposals had these definitions already on them.
I've got it if you want me to read it.
Helen?
So the purpose of a PF1 is to provide for a location of governmental and other uses, providing institutional uses to the public, and the permitted uses include post office, funeral parlor, cemetery, passenger transportation terminal, church, temple, synagogues greater than 10,000 square feet, government offices, government maintenance facilities, and private nonprofit animal services, including but not limited to veterinary clinic, kennel, boarding, grooming, animal training, dog park, and pet cemetery and crematorium.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Helen, I assume you think this is the best zoning for this facility?
Yes, this is definitely the most appropriate zoning for that facility.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lambert.
Okay, we had a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve carries, Mr. Okay.
Thank you.
They said they'll cut you a deal, they turn your mic off and let you vote. You gotta pick one or the other, you can't have both.
All right, next item is ZC 83-07-076A. It's a major amendment to a PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay. Subdivision is located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 433, west of US Highway 90, and north of Lake Pontchartrain in Slidell, Ward 8, District 13. It's 187.028 acres. Petitioner is Shelby LaSalle. Owner is succession of Fred J. Seeger and Fred J. Seeger Jr. Council District 13. Staff?
The original Wrigley's Estates PUD was approved in 1983, and their current request is for a major amendment to the PUD to alter the single-family home site to decrease the average lot size by 10 square feet, add 24 new single-family residential home sites, add green space around the streets to create roadway buffers and additional amenities. The proposed PUD layout exceeds the green space requirements and meets active and passive recreation requirements by proposing additional amenities.
Thank you. So Mr. Marone's going to speak on this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Paul Marone on behalf of the succession of Mr. Segura and Mr. Fred Segura Jr. As Ms. Cook noted, this project, this PUD was approved back in 1983. Phases 1 and 2 of Wrigley's Estates have long been constructed and built out. The remaining phases remained undeveloped until relatively recently. Phase 3A1 is currently under construction now, and many of the canals shown on the plan for the remaining portions of the property have been excavated at this time. Obviously, much has changed since 1983. Much in the world, much in development, much in PUD design. And through the years, we have been through several amendments of this PUD in an effort to modernize it, to make it more current, and to try to capture what we think the market is looking for out there. And that's really the reason that we're here tonight. Those are the driving factors behind the amendments that we bring to you this evening for consideration. The primary uses in the PUD are not changing. We're still going to have single-family uses. We're still going to have a marina on the far eastern side. All of those uses will remain in place. What we're asking to do this evening is to amend the PUD for the purpose of creating some green space, additional green space within the PUD, which I'll touch on in a minute, as well as to permit various amenities that would go on those green space parcels. So in doing that, as Ms. Cook noted, we are reducing the lot sizes ever so slightly from what they were originally approved at and are historically, but they are still relatively large parcels. You see constantly, you've seen tonight, the debate about 60-foot lots and 70-foot lots and so forth. So in that regard, these lots are relatively large. Even with the reduction, most of these lots are at least a half acre in size. They're roughly 90 feet in width or larger, and they have a depth of 230 feet or more. So relatively large parcels from what we're typically seeing today. But we took that small area out of each one of those lots, and we are proposing to create linear green space throughout the development on our major roadways. And if you look at the plan before you, you will see that we have parcels A1, A2, A3, and A4. Now, those parcels are all green space parcels that do not exist today, but that we would propose to create. The site has significant green space already. We will be taking it to 37% of the entire site with these additional parcels included. Those parcels, as you see, they will run from the north all the way down to Wrigley's Pass. And the idea is to try to create a concept and a plan that is more pedestrian or golf cart friendly, that has more amenities to offer those that might live in the development. Obviously, many of the people that live in Wrigley's Estates now and that would live in Wrigley's Estates in these phases may very well be boaters and fishermen. We know that's a major recreational component of what this project will offer. But we wanted to offer more than that. We wanted to offer some of the additional amenities that we see in some of the more upscale developments that we see along the Gulf Coast. And so in these parcels, A1 through A4, what are the permitted uses that we're proposing? Well, with A1, that's one of the interior parcels. It's not out on the pass, but we propose to permit a pool, a slide, and a cabana, a playground for the younger children, 2 to 5 years in age, fitness stations, and a multi-purpose path. On A2, as you get closer to the pass, and the Wrigley's, we're proposing a promenade deck with a viewing area, restrooms, a utility building, golf cart parking, and another multi-purpose pathway. For A3, clubhouse and parking areas, fitness stations, an older children's playground, now 5 to 12 years old, a pavilion with picnic tables, a kayak launch, and a fishing deck. A4, which is directly on the pass, we are proposing to permit a bar or grill, a community pool, a slide and cabana, a grand lawn with seating, fishing and bait shop, deck, and a viewing platform. In addition to these parcels and these permitted uses, we're also proposing to establish a method by which the residents can easily and safely access the parcels. So you will see on the plan that we are proposing a 15-foot sidewalk golf cart servitude area that will allow the residents from each end and all throughout this parcel or in this project access these various amenity sites. The staff comments raised 4 issues, and I'd like to just touch on those briefly. It was suggested that we add the restrictive covenants to the face of the plat, which we're happy to do, and we will do that. A dedication statement for the roads and green space, we will do that. The location of utilities, and we will do that. I would point out that there is an existing utility site on this parcel, and so we will be tying into those utilities. We recognize that there will be a need to increase the capacity to do that, whether it's water or sewer capacity. This site was laid out in 1983. with the idea that it would have to be enlarged over time as the project was built out. So there is area there for that build out and to increase the capacity and the supply available. But we'll be happy to put that on the plan. Also, it was suggested that we put the maximum height of the structures, which we will do and which we are proposing at 35 feet above the base flood elevation. If you are familiar with the Wrigley's area, you will know, and you can surmise, even if you're not, given where they are, the location to the Wrigley's Pass, that these are raised structures, right? These are parking underneath and boats underneath and so forth. So we would propose to keep the 35-foot height limitation, but of course to run that from the base flood elevation as opposed to natural ground, because we've got to go up so much because of the proximity to the Wrigley's. So our effort here is to enhance the quality of the project. We're not bringing anything new into the project as far as a component that's not there now, except for more green space and more amenities. It is our hope and our plan, by adding these amenities in this green space, that we're going to increase property values. We think we're bringing a nicer product that people will pay more for. So we are reinvesting, Mr. Segura is reinvesting in the project to try to make it better, nicer, and more valuable. We would respectfully request your consideration and approval for the major amendment to the PUD as I've laid out and as is set forth in your packet this evening. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. All right, anyone else wish to speak in favor? I'll go to those that wish to speak against. Mark Gardner, you're the HOA president, I believe.
First of all, thank you for letting us appear. We've had a big problem with what's going on here, and this goes back 2 or 3 years ago. There's been a lot of misrepresentation and deceit by the developer. And to just show you what the pattern of it started out as, is on your map, you will see that down where the intersection is of Chef Highway and Highway 433, that's where all of the commercial property was supposed to be. Well, now we've noticed that they're suggesting that we put in place all of these items in the amenities area on table 2. But some of those are bars, grills, bait shops, viewing platform, decks. There's nothing to keep anybody who lives anywhere from coming in and adding more traffic to the neighborhood as it presently exists in order to get to these items. And we've been in touch with Tessie, who's the water and sewer people, and they say that there's no way that they can support any more water users or sewer users, and that the developers will have to completely plan out and develop and tie in a new water well paid by them, and as well as the new sewer system. Another thing that is a little bit deceiving is that they want to talk about having these family resort homes. Well, where are those going to be? We're going to have people, it's going to be virtually like a motel condo situation. And that's going to be in the neighborhood next door to ours. They did not see fit to even list us as a neighbor. They show on the west side, Treasure Isle subdivision. Well, we've been severed, and it was under a form of deceit. We're not part of this phase 3. The idea that we were going to get together first on something was we were going to have maintenance on their side of the canal. That's a common canal that comes in from the Wrigley's between our subdivision and that subdivision. And we were going to maintain our side and they were going to maintain their side. Well, the problem is our side's bulkheaded. Theirs is not. It sloughs off and it fills in and it's constantly have to be dredged. I doubt that the developer is going to put in bulkhead on his own on lots he plans to sell. Another thing is that after that proposal was made and went through, it was decided to sever phase 1 and 2. We only have 100 lots. We have 75 homeowners. He has way more lots down there that he's supposedly going to develop, which I doubt will ever happen. So therefore, he rammed the vote through to sever the 2 neighborhoods without us even being involved. Another thing that was a problem for us is that when the notification came about this meeting, there were only 10 of the people in the neighborhood that got the notifications. We propose to at least postpone this, if you don't deny it, so that we can talk to the other neighbors and get them together so that we can decide what we want to do in the future, because this has really been a sneak job from day one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Blanchard. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Donna Blanchard. I live at 240 Marlin Drive, which is across the bayou from the proposed area. Okay? I'm asking you to deny this. The reason, because number one, the traffic increase. He's only asking for 24 more lots, but you're looking at 2-3 cars per lot. You're looking at 50 to 75 more cars. He has 171 lots proposed in this section. The amount of cars, people, traffic out there on 433, which can't hardly handle what we've got now out there. It's terrible. He's asking for 6 acres of green space, one which is a lot out on the lake, where I guess that's where he plans to put his barbecue grills and his pier, I guess, I don't know. This is the first time I'm reading of that tonight. Like Mr. Gardner said, we have 100 home sites. We have 75 homes in there. All of our homes are about 100 wide. Mine is a little bit bigger because it goes around the turn. It's probably 380 across the back. I don't want the lot across from me to be 75, 90 feet. I'm asking you to please deny this proposal. Like our parish president has said, please consider a moratorium on all new building in this parish. This is just going to be a destruction out there. The traffic out there on a weekend with boats and trucks and cars, people coming and going, is unbelievable. This will only add to the problem that we have in the parish. The water and the sewer. It is unbelievable. I have to have a water pump connected to my house that I individually paid for to bring water up to my 3rd floor because the water pressure isn't there. They just cannot supply the amount of water. There are plenty times during the year when we don't have water service. Our pump has gone out and our water company may be 2-3 days out. We got a letter last week stating we have to have 3 days of water on hand at all times for each person in your household. I have 3 people living in my house. I have to have 9 gallons of water at all times in my house. Whoever has that, okay? I'm just asking you to deny this request from this gentleman, Mr. Segura. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else that wishes to speak against? I have a couple of cards, but they said they did not want to speak. Okay, I'm going to go to rebuttal. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first address the idea that adding this green space and these amenities are going to bring destruction to the area. I respectfully disagree and cannot imagine how adding green space and bringing amenities will bring destruction to an area. But let's, if you would, please look at the plan, first of all. The only amenity that I read that is other than a pool, a slide, a walking path, or a child's playground is on parcel A4. So let's look at where parcel A4 is in relation to anybody other than Mr. Segura. See this plan? Right there. I can't even count how far it is from Wrigley's Phase 1. There is nothing around it. No one. No one. So to suggest that that is going to somehow negatively impact anybody, I just respectfully disagree. I respectfully disagree. The other amenities, if the other amenities are going to be the downfall of Wrigley's Estates Phase 1, then I'm sorry. We did not conceive that bringing an amenity package, better uses, higher quality, would be viewed in a negative manner. And respectfully, I don't believe that it should be. Let's talk about utilities for a moment. I mentioned when I spoke to you on my direct presentation that we recognized that there would need to be improvements to the utilities. We recognize that we've got to put in a new well. We recognize that we would have to expand the sewer site. And you know what? We're prepared to do that, and we will do that. And guess who will benefit from that? The very people that are here opposing to that. That system that they're on, that they're not happy with, and I respect that they're not happy with it, that is the system that we will have to upgrade to be able to develop our lots. So that upgrade will not just benefit us, it's going to benefit everybody on the system, so it will benefit them as well. We are not changing any uses inside of this development. None. The only thing we're doing is bringing the amenities, and the only amenity that is a little bit peculiar, a little unique, is the one that I just pointed out that is in the middle of the Segura property, nowhere near any neighbors. So I don't believe that it will have a negative impact on the neighbors. I can understand and respect their concerns, but I just disagree with them. And I urge you to look closely at the map. I urge you to look at what's out there and ask yourself if you think that adding more green space is going to have a negative impact on anyone that's out there. 24 lots. There are 24 additional lots. But you know, last year we did a minor amendment and we got rid of 4 fourplexes. Okay? So that's 16 units that you would have to put against the 24 units to get a net number to see really what the impact is. And I would respectfully suggest to you that the net impact of those lots, which is about 8, is negligible. And the benefits to having this green space, having the ability for the pedestrian interconnection and the golf cart, and these amenities outweigh that. At least we believe that it does, and I hope you believe that it does as well. This is a public hearing process. There is public notice given. We don't give the notice, but we're certainly not trying to hide anything by filing our petition, having the property posted, the parish mailing whatever notices they mail. We don't have any involvement in that. And then coming here tonight, waiting an hour and a half and making our position known on the record, in front of you, in front of the TV screen. So we're not hiding anything. We're being very clear about what we want to do, and we're proud of what we want to do. We think it's an upgrade to the area. We think it's a benefit to the remaining property that Mr. Segura has, but we think that those additional property values will benefit everybody in the area. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, the 2 folks that spoke against, you have rebuttal?
Yes. One of the proposals with all these amenities is they're talking about golf cart garages and pathways and whatnot. Right now, if they decide they want to even do this, which I doubt they'll ever do because it's on the opposite end of the subdivision and they're starting at our end, it's going to be down here on the end by a commercial area by the highway. They're going to have golf carts going up and down the highway, which is illegal. And some of this stuff really needs to be reconsidered. I respectfully request that y'all postpone this so that we can get some of the more active members in the neighborhood involved, because I think there's been a lot of deception on the part of the developer. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Blanchard, do you have any comment? Okay. I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, Paul.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the transparency that you guys have brought to us last year as it relates to the duplex, and also this is very, very, very good upgrade in my opinion to the area. I drove through that area, and thank you all for waving at me when I passed through the neighborhood. You guys didn't know who I was, and it's a beautiful area. But I really appreciate it. It's beautiful back there. It's beautiful back there. And I do believe this will even more enhance it. However, my concern is the concern that the residents seem to feel that they have been kind of left out of the developmental process. While there have been public announcements and all, I just would like for us openly to mitigate that, because I feel the residents when they feel that they're not aware of some things right there in the neighborhood. However, I do believe they think in their heart that this would be a good upgrade, an excellent upgrade for the area. And I think it'd be a good thing to try to mitigate that at some point in time, even if it is to mitigate it once this is done. I don't know your developer personally, but I know you, and you've been very open and transparent with all of us, not just the parish, but your business clients as well. I like this. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about it. I love the area, and I would like very much for to make a motion to approve this. But I'm going to wait to see what the other commissioners have to say about it.
So you're not putting a motion on the floor?
Yes, I am putting a motion on the floor to approve.
Okay, all right, we have a motion to approve. Commissioner Crawford.
Just to clarify quickly with Mr. Randolph before we move on, is that motion to approve subject to the staff comments in the staff report?
Okay. All right, I got my mic on. Paul, a couple of questions. First question is the golf cart path. I can't see it on here. Where does it go?
So it will be, it's along the front of the lots. It's 15 feet
Okay.
in width.
Okay. So
So
it looks to me like, this is broken into, say, three pieces, a residential piece, and commercial down on the end. Can you go from one residential piece to the next on the golf cart paths?
Let's see. Make sure I answer you correctly. So
The reason I ask, it looks like you've got canals in between the two.
yes, you do have canal. That's why I'm looking to make
Okay.
sure I answer you.
You can.
Okay. Yes, you can.
Okay. It looks like you could closer to the road. So then, close to the road, underneath the waterfront villa homes designation, are those parking spaces? Those little,
Those are actually single-family villas.
Oh.
So those are lots.
Okay.
And they're common wall, but they're ownership. You will own that area. That
Townhouse?
townhome.
Townhouse?
Townhome,
Okay.
yes.
okay, so those are included in your count for the number of home sites?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So just to clarify what we're talking about here, the PUD's already been approved, and it was approved for what, 147 lots in this existing phase, in this phase?
That is correct.
Okay.
That
And
is
so
correct.
you have an amendment to raise it to 171.
That is correct.
Okay. I went out there today, drove around. It looks like a really good development to me, especially commercial down on the end, down there by the highway. This seems to build away from the existing community. So I think I agree with Commissioner Randolph, and I'll second his motion to approve.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Crawford. Commissioner Seeger.
I grew up trapping and hunting in the Fritchie Marsh on family property. I was appalled when when they built the first ones, and they've actually pleasantly surprised me. It's a wonderful neighborhood with nice people there. I don't know why you would want to put a sidewalk in when you can have a boat in the backyard. But when you look at the new developments in the high-end parts of Florida, it's about golf cart communities now. I don't think they would go on the highway, sir. You're right, that is illegal, and they will not go on the. Well, this has not been done yet. This development has not come to fruition yet. But anyway, I also approve of all this, and I think it's a wonderful idea to upgrade. That is all.
All right, Commissioner Willie.
Paul, almost called you Jeff. Back to the golf cart situation. Like where lot 72 and 73 is, how do they get access to the east? They got to go up and across, or?
Let's see, 72 and 73.
Or 57 and then over to the right. You know, I don't see no green space, you know.
Yeah, so that's what I was just asking to make sure I understood exactly how that would work. So let's start on.
Say I lived on lot 73. I want to get my golf cart and go to lot 44 or A4.
Okay, so if you're on 73, very easily you can see how you can get to A1 and A2, right? You just leave the cul-de-sac going back to the west. That's very easy.
Right.
So, but we want to get to A4.
Yeah.
So you would go down that cul-de-sac. When you get to the intersection, you would go back to the north. You see that green space parcel that is around the utility site?
And it's connected to a cul-de-sac.
That's connected to the cul-de-sac.
But I don't see no cart path there.
There will be access there that will then open up access to everything on the eastern side.
But they have to travel the road, not a cart path.
They would have to travel the road to. There will be, so after you leave the green space by the utility site and in the cul-de-sac, there is a green space along the front of all those townhomes, is what I'm being told, that is part of this.
Okay, I don't see that on the map.
Yeah, that will be there.
It's shown as a 35-foot servitude, it's just colored in white.
That's why, okay, I was looking for green, like everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
It
one
is a little
question.
confusing, so I'm sorry, I
right.
make sure I understood it to try to answer the question.
Okay, another question I have is, I noticed the utility plant that's there, it says not a part.
Correct.
Who owns that and what is it part of?
It is owned by the utility company. Yeah, it's owned by Tessie, who is the provider. It was given to them for them taking over the operation of the utilities. Actually, it became Tessie over time. It was another provider at one time. But there is enough area on that site for the additional capacities that we will have to make working with Tessie to be able to provide those services.
Water and sewage?
Water and sewer,
And that's
both.
to make the improvements to the other part of the subdivision that these people here in
That's correct.
opposition for.
The main thing is, there needs to be upgrades to both. There needs to be a new well.
Okay.
And we recognize that that's going to be our cost.
Because you had to get under contract with that utility.
Correct. They're our provider, and so we've got to, as you know, the utilities don't make the expansions.
Right.
The users have to make those expansions.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McInnes.
Yes, this may be more for Sean. Since the first phases were in many years ago, we've had higher elevations for construction. are we building to higher levels in this new phase?
The parish requirements have gone up a foot for the minimum roadway elevation, so we will be going up a foot higher than what was before. The home sites, yes. Yes, the home sites will be meeting the new requirements.
How does that work with isn't FEMA going to require 1 extra foot? Am I wrong on that?
I mean, there's a preliminary requirement that's out there right now, and that's what we would be going to. That's not officially encoded yet, but we would be going to the higher requirement.
To the higher requirement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I'm through.
Mr. Barcelona.
Paul, the lot sizes, you said they were a half acre, is that right?
Yes, generally, they vary.
Okay.
But they are about that size, some a little bit larger.
What about the lot size? What about the dimensions of the?
So roughly 90 by about 230.
So how does that size compare to other PUDs? Is it about the same? Is it comparable to other?
Well, it's larger than most, that's gonna be larger than most all other PUDs. Most PUDs do not have lots of that size.
Has a traffic impact study been done?
We have not, we did do a traffic study for Phase 3A1. We have not done one for the entire development. That would be once we got to the planning stage.
Okay. All right, that's it, thank you.
Commissioner McInnes.
Wanted to follow up, Sean. What's the storm surge levels in this area? It's sort of, the elephant in the room to me is where this subdivision is located. And I'm just curious, because in this repetitive loss map that we've been looking at tonight, in Area 7, it has almost 700 homes with repetitive flooding in FEMA.
Sure.
And are we just going to add 24 more homes to repetitive flooding?
No. The requirements back when they started, a lot of these homes along coastal Slidell were kind of built before the 1980s, and whenever the FEMA flood maps came out. They based all their elevations originally on the 7-foot level, which was a 1927 hurricane. Around 83, they said they went up to 9 feet. Well, now, if you look on this map, it's anywhere from 14 to 17-foot elevation. So the new models have all been accounted for in this new FEMA map that's out there.
But what's the highest storm surge that we've had out there?
Sure. It was 14 in Katrina. And the homes will be at 17.
Okay. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Commissioner Truxillo.
Paul, sorry.
It's okay.
We talked about water and sewage utility. What about electric utilities? Is it overhead, underground? Who's?
Underground.
Okay, good.
It'll all be underground, yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Barcelona.
I don't want you to leave just yet. So just to clarify, the traffic study, the next stage, if this is approved tonight, the next stage would be the tentative subdivision submittal, correct?
Correct.
And a traffic study would be included with that submittal?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's it.
All right. Do we have any commissioners that have any further questions? Please vote.
I haven't had time to do the math, but 2 lots that I have in Wrigley's Estates are
Sir?
100 by 300.
We're finished with the public comment. Thank you.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Russ, how do you vote?
That's like the most funny you
All right, next item is ZC 03-11-073, major amendment to a PUD Plan Unit Development Overlay. subdivision located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 21 and on the north side of Pinecrest Drive, Covington, Ward 1, District 1. It's 65.679 acres. Petitioner is Ryan Patrick. Owner is Natchez Trace Property Owners Association Incorporated. Ryan Patrick, Council District 1. Staff?
Phase 1 of the Natchez Trace PUD was recorded in 2006 and contains just over 65 acres with 72 single-family residential lots and just under 12 acres of green space. The purpose of the request is to transfer 1,588.8 square feet of green space within Phase 1 of the Natchez Trace PUD to Phase 3 of the adjacent Chafuncta Club Estates PUD. The reason for the request is to erect a monument sign for the Chafuncta Club Estates PUD.
Thank you. Mr. Maroon.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if it pleases the chair, I'd like my comments for this case to apply to this case and the next. They are related, as you'll hear, and to fully explain one, I need the other. So I'll try to keep it brief, but my comments on this case will cover both. We are proposing two amendments to two PUDs. The Natchez Trace PUD, which is along Highway 21 and Pinecrest Drive on the north side, and the T3 Chafuncta Club Estates PUD, which is on the west side, on the south side of Pinecrest Drive. And these amendments to the PUD have nothing to do with the lot layouts or the lot sizes or anything along those lines. These requests are solely for the purposes of allowing Chafuncta Club Estates to construct a new entrance feature at Highway 21 and Pinecrest Drive. The Unified Development Code has some very specific rules and limitations on what you can and cannot do with regards to entrance features for subdivisions and for signage in subdivisions. When our team laid out for the staff sort of what their vision was, it was determined that really the best way to accomplish, perhaps the only way to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, is to amend the PUD, and that's why we're here before you. The first case for the Natchez Trace Homeowners Association, we are proposing to amend the PUD to create a very small parcel right at the corner of Highway 21 and Pinecrest that is owned by that association that Chafuncta Club Estates can acquire. The reason that we have to acquire that site is because we cannot have an entrance feature or a sign on someone else's property. So we have talked with the Natchez Trace Homeowners Association. They voted and have agreed to allow us to request the amendment to their PUD to create this very small parcel so that we can acquire it and to permit a sign or an entrance feature to be located on it. With regards to the amendment to the Chafuncta Club Estates PUD, likewise, we are proposing that you approve this evening the entrance feature as well as the location of that entrance feature. So what are we asking in particular? If you look in your packet, you will see that there are some diagrams that show what this entrance feature will look like. It is brick columns, one on each side of Pinecrest Drive. Not located in the right-of-way, but located on these parcels of property that I'm talking about. They are about 20 feet high, gas lamps on each. There will be a bronze plaque on one with the Chafuncta Club Estates logo. There will be a brick retaining wall with an earthen berm, as well as extensive landscaping all around these monuments, these brick columns. I'd like to point out that we were very careful in the placement of these columns because, as you all know, we have sightline issues at Highway 21 and Pinecrest Drive. We have taken that into great consideration. All of those sight lines are preserved. None of the landscaping, none of the entrance features of the columns will in any way impede the safety of the ingress and egress in that area. So that has been looked at. Chafuncta Club Estates entrance, I don't think it's changed in my lifetime. If it has, I don't remember it. I believe that those wooden signs were built in the 1950s. At that time, there were no regulations like we had today. Those signs were actually in the right-of-way, which we can't do anymore. And so it was time for a makeover of the entrance to Tchefuncte Club Estates. You may recall we appeared before you some time ago for final on one of our phases in Phase 3. What is unique about Tchefuncte Club Estates is that they, the homeowners, took it upon themselves to go out and buy property that was adjacent to them, to preserve what they had there, to develop it in a manner that was consistent and compatible with what they have done there. They did that at considerable expense and considerable effort. And so it's only fitting that they want to have an entrance now that really reflects the wonderful things that are going on inside of Tchefuncte Club Estates. We would respectfully request your approval to amend the Natchez Trace PUD to create this very small parcel where one of our columns will be located, to permit that column to be there. Amend the Tchefuncte Club Estates PUD to allow for the entrance feature that I've described and for the landscaping that I've described. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have, but we appreciate your consideration for these two amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to pause for just a minute and read item 10 into the record so that we have it on record, but we will vote on them separately. It's 2020-1801-ZC, major amendment to PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay, subdivision located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 21 and on the south side of Pinecrest Drive, Covington, Ward 1, District 1. It's 221.172 acres. The petitioner's Charles Barnett, and the owner's TCE Properties, LLC, Council District 1. Okay. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against? All right. I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Seeger.
In regards to case ZC 0311-073, I move to approve.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Seeger to approve item 9 on the agenda. Commissioner Crawford.
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Commissioner Trent. Okay.
I came back.
All right. You want to speak, Ken?
This thing's got on drugs, I'm telling you.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second on item 9, which is ZC 03-11-073. Please vote.
Thumbs up.
The motion to approve carries
All right.
with Mr. West's approval.
We've heard Paul's comments on item 10, 2020-1801-ZC. Commissioner Seeger.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Seeger to approve. Commissioner Crawford.
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Commissioner. Never mind.
This thing's starting to get on my nerves. Whoa, just what happened now? I just wanted to.
Yeah. You got it all cleared?
I want to make a comment here. This development you guys are doing there, I think is one of the nicest jobs I've seen around again. This continues to be an excellent looking development. That front entrance to Tchefuncte Estates has been lacking for what's back there for a long time. This new will really fit the area nice. So I compliment you on what you're trying to do there.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Please vote.
Mr. Smale? Thank you. The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, we have no.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Could we go first next time? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Unfortunately.
Your attorney has to submit the application sooner, that's all.
All right, we have no new business, we have no old business. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.